Fizer, and welcome to Profoundly Speaking. And I pray that you've been treating life with great intention, not flattery, not sincerely offering life flattering conversation, but giving life intentional value. And sometimes we promise people flattery. We promise them something we may do to hold them at bay. But I pray that you've been given life something of value. I pray that you've offered life not an eventual come through in the future, teasing life that eventually you will come through, but that whatever you have given life can be used right now, living to the point where life actually sees the value of your hope and the value of your activity. Good evening, everybody. Not giving life an eventual, one day I'll have it together. You know, sometimes in relationships, in love relationships, a person may offer the lady an eventual, one day I'm going, and so you keep that person hoping while you try to figure it out. You begin to establish yourself with a flexible commitment. You're flexible to try to window shop, but you want that person to stay right there until I get here. And so we're accustomed to the Holy Spirit waiting for us. And I'm going to tell you something. When you perceive the Holy Spirit in an improper way, you get improper results, as though the Holy Spirit waits on us to figure it out. So we say he's patient with us. Let me tell you something. The Holy Spirit is a constant and consistent worker. The Holy Spirit is busy building the kingdom. The Holy Spirit is busy building the governance of God. The Holy Spirit isn't sitting back waiting to develop relationships with us. The Holy Spirit is a vast wisdom key. The Holy Spirit is a vast energy of the Father. And the Holy Spirit is busy doing the Father's will. The Holy Spirit is busy obeying the Father. The Holy Spirit is busy obeying the Father. Now, when we're not busy obeying the Father, the Holy Spirit isn't waiting for us until we begin to obey the Father. The Holy Spirit is doing its work. The Holy Spirit is doing its bidding. And the Holy Spirit's job is not to wait on disagreeable children. But once we get ourselves together, wherever we catch the Holy Spirit in his workings, that's where we will be found. The Holy Spirit is busy. Write that down. The Holy Spirit is busy obeying the Father. The Holy Spirit is busy continuing the work of the Father. The Holy Spirit isn't waiting for me, and the Holy Spirit isn't waiting for you. The Holy Spirit is doing the Father's bidding. The Holy Spirit is doing what we should be doing, the Father's bidding. And so many times we're busy contending with our personal realities and emotions and feelings and thoughts and struggles. And we're not waiting on ourselves, so we thank God for waiting on us, when really God is building kingdoms. God is building kingdoms, and God is doing his thing, not just waiting for you to get it together. We're waiting on ourselves to do it. And as a result of the Holy Spirit, like I said this before and I wrote it, the Holy Spirit is the most significant pastor you will ever have. Our lives, your life and mine is the church of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's church isn't a Sunday or Saturday gatherer. The church of the Holy, now the local assemblies may gather corporately, but the Holy Spirit's church is a daily communion between his pastorship, his authority, and our obedience. Our obedience opens the door, not flattery. and the way that people may flatter their leaders or teachers and stuff like that, the Holy Spirit isn't easily flattered. The Holy Spirit is our pastor. The Holy Spirit is not just with us while we're listening to other things. The Holy Spirit is the most significant pastor that we have. And we are his church, which is in communion with him daily. And the effects of our life is as effective as our connection with our inner pastor, the Holy Spirit. Not in our connection with me or anybody else, but as we connect to our inner pastor, our life reveals the governance and the power and the faith and the authority and the assuredness and the peace and the power. And see, if we have a pastor called the Holy Spirit, but we're following other things of the world, then that's not our pastor. See, we have a way of placing the Holy Spirit in places that we easily disobey him, but we want him present. We take the presence of God. Some of us can take the presence of God for granted by saying he's there while we're over there. And God will always be where he is, but our consciousness is not always where God is. God is so big, he fills everything. And his presence is always where it is. Where are we present? Because our lives, it's not a matter of our struggles. You got to understand something. Anything that we struggle with, we have built ourselves. Whatever we struggle with psychologically is a result of our fear, our result of a lack of accountability, our fear of distrust, our fear of people. We listen and hear other people. We hear them in the tone of our own suspicion. We already know where we've shortcut it. We've already know where we wanted everything for less. And so we hear according to wanting all for less. How we hear or see people is determined by our own procrastination and laziness within. So yes, we've struggled. Some struggles have been what we were subject to. And most of our struggle have been because of disobedience. It hasn't been because we didn't know what to do. It's because we didn't obey what we should have done when we knew. We all know what to do, but because of the pain of being impoverished or being carnal or being whatever state of mind, we never chose sometimes the proper way to do it, because the moment called for a hustle and not wisdom. You follow what I'm saying? So we've established some struggles in our life. And most of the struggles have been because of carnality, our lack of obeying, our disagreement with obeying, our desire of wanting right outcomes with wrong incomes. I want the right result with a lack of the proper income. I want a dream result with a nightmare habit. Wanting all. I remember when you didn't want to graduate from school or study, and the teachers would ask, what do you want to do? You say, I want a business. You just wanted to work for yourself. You wanted the flexibility of your own commitments. I don't want to work for somebody because it means I got to get up and do what they say. But if I work for myself, I can determine when I get up. We wanted to be in control for something beyond control. We wanted to be able to control the flexibility of our laziness, our procrastination, and our study habits. And if I can control it, I won't have to do as much to be built to be fully excellent, because my fear of focusing on one thing is going to keep me from having time at being flexible enough to be worldly or to be irresponsible. How many of you know what I'm talking about? So I want to work for myself, but I want to set the law for what I need to do. Even in ministry, most people don't want to be full ministries. We want to be great when the moment is good. I don't want to be great all the time. I don't want to be responsible all the time. I want to pick and choose the time that I can come out and show myself. You understand what I'm saying? So it's hard to have a pastor called the Holy Spirit when we have a lot of disagreeable habits within our life. But I'm going to tell you something. When the Holy Spirit is your guide, when the Holy Spirit is your teacher, you can't feed them with flattery. Our life as its church, our life as its vessel, our life is the revealing of our obedience to the Holy Spirit. Our life naturally expresses the degree of obedience that we have with our inner teacher. Our life reveals it in strength, in peace, in finance, in management, in discipline, in stewardship. Our life, not our jobs, but our life, not our jobs, but our life, not our business, but our life. How our life responds to the demand of the Holy Spirit. Let me tell you something. When the Holy Spirit is your pastor, if you can listen to the Holy Spirit, you can handle anything else in the world. Nothing else in the world should consume you or choke you when you have the greatest teacher. You have access to the greatest teacher that ever was and ever will be in your life at any given moment. Where services may start at noon and end, and 9:30 Sunday school, and we out by 12 and 7 o'clock. You serve a pastor who's continually in service all day, every day. You are in service. Write that down. I am in service all day, every day. I have a teacher who's never closed. Can y'all hear what I'm saying? I have a teacher who's always open, always sharing. And if I'm simply hearing the Holy Spirit and not following through with the Holy Spirit, that's not good. To hear and not do. To always have access to information that I don't use. I can't truly thank God for wasted resources. It's hard to thank God for wasted time. We thank God because we can take the access to the Holy Spirit for granted by thanking Him for being there. But being there is not enough for the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a worker. The Holy Spirit is a mover. The Holy Spirit isn't excited about merely being there. The Holy Spirit isn't excited by access alone. The Holy Spirit is not excited for just being in the place. The Holy Spirit is not excited by being near you. The Holy Spirit isn't excited by being merely near you. The Holy Spirit wants to become you. The Holy Spirit wants you to become Him. The Holy Spirit pastors us in order for us to become it. The Holy Spirit is the moving identity and energy of God. The Holy Spirit doesn't want to be near us. The Holy Spirit wants to be us. The Holy Spirit is not excited being close to us, being close enough to copy off the movements, to be close enough to see the Holy Spirit and then tell people what you see the Holy Spirit really is a letdown. The Holy Spirit don't want you to tell others what He's doing. The Holy Spirit wants you to embody what He's doing. So you would never have to tell what He's doing because your body, your life is saying that this is what the Holy Spirit does. How many of you, your life is actually revealing what the Holy Spirit is doing? Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. The Holy Spirit don't want to be near me. He wants my life to say it for Him. When the Holy Spirit is within me, my life speaks as Him. Am I making sense? Yeah. When the Holy Spirit is me, my life is revealing Holy Spirit. My life is saying Holy Spirit. My life is saying Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit wants agreement and obedience. He doesn't want a separate agreement. He doesn't want, I agree with you, I'll let you do that. The Holy Spirit doesn't want us to let Him do anything. He wants to be us doing it. He doesn't want us watching Him doing anything. He wants to do it as us. The Holy Spirit is the greatest pastor you will ever have. The Holy Spirit is the greatest companion you will ever have. The Holy Spirit is not a person who wants to be near you. The Holy Spirit doesn't want to be bragged upon. He doesn't want to be flattered. The Holy Spirit is a constant mover. The Holy Spirit is a constant worker. The Holy Spirit is consistently and constantly expanding the governance of God. And if the Holy Spirit is expanding the governance of God without you, there is a problem. Because if he's my pastor, I won't listen to another voice. If my life looks like I've been listening to other voices, then those other voices are my pastor. See, in our human mind, we want to stay connected to great things while we listen to everything else. In our ego, in our lack, and in our mental poverty, we want to maintain access to great things while we listen to other things. It lets you know in our lost nature and our darkened nature, if I can stay connected to the greatness of God while I look for other things, it's like we want the best of both worlds. I want access to the greatness as I begin to copy and look at other things. And our lives begin to reflect the other things that we're looking at. It's funny how we can say God is our pastor, but our life, our inner church does not look like a healthy, thriving temple, a thriving body, a thriving mental confidence, a thriving identity, because we're feeding from other things. We want access to great things because we always want to know what God is doing. We always want to know what God is doing. It's like when we were children. I always wanted to know where mom and daddy was because I could determine when I cleaned the house. I want to know exactly where they are. I want to lay here as long as I can. And when I find out they're close, then I'll get up and clean. I want to know where mom and daddy is because I don't want them to surprise me in my laziness. I really don't want to work. I want to lay here and I want to mess around and do other things. But if I know where mom and daddy is, I could determine when I finally get out of this slump and start cleaning the house. I know when I get a call, mom and daddy down the street. I'll say, that's about 30 minutes away. So I try to establish my procrastination and my laziness to the time that mom and dad will come home. If I know that mom's going to come home at 5:30, I could stay lazy and stay in the bed until at least 4:30. So it gives me time to do everything I want. And then at the last minute, I could walk in obedience. And sometimes we want to know where God is so we can see how much time we have to do what we want. And that's why he said, when I return, no man would know the day nor the hour. He said, the Son of Man doesn't even know the time of his return. So it says, work while it is day. For when night comes, no man can work. Be about your Father's business. But we have lived in procrastination so long that we want to be friends with prophets who can tell us where something is, but it also gives us time to be lazy. We feel convicted with the insight, but we feel comfortable with the convenience. Am I making sense? And so we live in double lives, double-minded lives. God is my pastor, but my church doesn't express the greatness of it. No. The Father is busy working. The Holy Spirit is busy building kingdoms. And the Holy Spirit doesn't want to be close to us. The Holy Spirit is not even trying to be patient with us. The Holy Spirit isn't waiting for anybody to make a decision. The Holy Spirit isn't waiting for you and I to make a decision. The Holy Spirit is not waiting for me to make a decision. Salvation will wait for you, but the kingdom will not wait for you. Some of us are attributing to the kingdom what salvation is or what religion is. The kingdom waits for no one. The kingdom waits for no one. The kingdom waits for no one. Jesus gave everything he was and is. And in order for us to enjoy it, we must give everything we are. The kingdom is a reality of giving everything you have. The kingdom waits for no one. And so we can thank him for being patient, but we are wasting the patience of God. God isn't waiting on you and I to make any decisions. God isn't waiting for you to make a decision. Other decisions that we're looking at or hoping to make is weighing us down. Most of our life is being weighed down by looking at other voices because we're not following our pastor. The Holy Spirit is your pastor. As we obey our pastor, not flatter our pastor, as we obey our inner pastor, our lives begin to take on the mark of that obedience. We struggle when we don't obey our pastor. Our Holy Spirit is the pastor of our lives. Now, if we're listening to other things, those things are our pastor. We can't have a Holy Spirit church following other voices outside of the church. Am I making sense? But we still want to maintain access to God while following everything else. I still want to be close to God. I still want to be close to God. I want to put my hand here and I'm going to look there. And Jesus said, if we put our hands to the plow and we look back, he said, we're not fit for discovery. We're not fit for the kingdom. If we put our hands on the plow as though we're going to do work, but we're looking back, we're looking backwards, we're looking at ourselves, we're looking at our failures, we're looking at this, we're looking at validation, we're looking at this, we're looking at other people, we're pleasing other people. And he says we're not fit for the kingdom when you're trying to please other people, but something in us makes us say we're committed to something that we don't trust. And in order to walk in the power, we're going to have to walk in the truth. And sometimes the truth is not what we want to hear. And if we're angry and offended at the truth, then we're not walking in the fullness of our church. See, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to let you go. See, when we are corrected, it is the Father perfecting us. See, when we are immature, we want to feel like we're right. But when we're sons of God, we find pleasure in living right. We don't say, I want to live right. Because whatever you want to do, you do it. You don't declare to the Holy Spirit, that's what I want to do. When that's what you want to do, you do it. You don't say, that's what I want. You don't tease the Holy Spirit by giving it an eventual desire. Whatever you want to do, you're doing it. Repeat after me. Whatever it is I want to do, I'm doing it. Whatever it is that I want to do, I'm already doing it. So the immature will want to constantly feel right because they hate being told they're wrong. And we could get offended when we're told we're wrong because we look at wrong as just correction only. We don't look at it as being made perfect. So if I don't say what I'm doing or say what I'm thinking, I can't hear that I'm wrong. And if I don't hear that I'm wrong, I feel self-righteous. And so when I feel self-righteous, that's the fuel of my movement. I feel good. But if I say something and then it gets corrected, I'm going to be mad because I'm going to feel wrong again and I want to feel like I'm right. Feeling right and having the wrong body of work. See, you got to understand, when your life reveals a wrong intensity, it's going to produce a correction. Because it's not a matter of the state of your mind, it's the state of what is being created as a result of your obedience to the Spirit. And we want to feel right. I want to feel right. I want you to see what I'm not doing. And that's a sign of tragic immaturity. Because either we're trying to keep up with other people, or we just want to know what it feels like to know something. Because we feel we've gotten old and we should know something. And so that competition with feeling old and I should know something makes us gullible for all sorts of illegitimate knowledge. It makes us gullible to try to know a little bit about everything because we feel we're late and we should know something. But you know things by obedience and by study. You just don't come here knowing something. You know what you fill yourself with. Am I making sense? You know according to what you fill yourself with. Gullible knowledge will get you destroyed. Ego knowledge will get you destroyed because I feel I'm old enough and I should know something. I should be able to tell somebody something. But you can only tell people the degree of your obedience to the Holy Spirit. You can't tell anyone anything without full obedience to the Holy Spirit, which is your pastor. You understand what I'm saying? So before I go, the Holy Spirit is the greatest pastor you would have. And he's only as great as your obedience to him. He's not great according to how often you ask him to forgive you. Constantly asking the Holy Spirit to forgive you for taking him for granted still does not open your eyesight to vision. In order for you to have an open eyesight to vision, you must obey your way to sight. You and I must obey our way to sight. Because the Holy Spirit isn't trying to spend time with me just to spend time with me. He wants our lives as his church to be the talking point for him. As we obey him, our lives tell on him. As we obey him, our lives speak as him. As we obey the Spirit, our lives talk for him. Our lives talk as him. Our lives talk as him. I'm Undrai Fizer. If you have the Fizer app, if you don't have it, download it. Fizer Interglobal on the App Store or Google stores. There's a lot of resources for you if you use them. They're only as good. See, the resources are only profitable if you use them. But if you can take them for granted, then it's not profitable. Anything you use for the right reason is profitable for you. Having access to information isn't profitable for you. Access without usury or value is thievery. Having access to wisdom and not using wisdom because you want to figure it out is really dishonoring wisdom. Wisdom is not trying to be an alternative companion to you. Wisdom not used because I'm trying to see how to do it is really dishonoring the presence of wisdom. You follow what I'm saying? Wisdom is not trying to be close to you. Wisdom is trying to use you. Because when you obey wisdom, your life will look like wisdom. When you obey your pastor, the Holy Spirit, your life will talk like your obedience. Your life can't speak what you're not doing. And people can't see according to your heart. People see according to your obedience. People can't know your heart. They know your obedience. People can't see what's not there. People can't experience what obedience haven't brought you. People will feed from what you obey. They don't see what you say. They feel what you obey. People will feel what you obey. Write that down. People will feel what you obey. They don't feel your promises. They don't feel your eventualities. People will feel what you obey. Hey, if you desire to invest, go to $Coach Fizer, that's our cash app. Or you can go to Invest Financially on the app, and that's PayPal. And you can give whatever you desire, whatever the value of this is to you. And I thank God for it, because sometimes when you sow the value of a thing, you show God that I trust Him. So there is no such thing as convenient investments. Sometimes we invest inconveniently for what we really, really want. You feel what I'm saying? I don't do money lines, but I do vision lines. And having access to wisdom and not using it is not a smart thing. Look, I'm Undrai Fizer. Join us Tuesday for charting the course, okay? Peace and love always.